So we're heading over to the racist province of Manitoba in a city called Brandon at Neelan High School, where 15-year-old Chinoso Oduke was brutally attacked with a sword by another 16-year-old student. Take a look.
Most of the tendons are cut. That's why I have all these things on as they heal.
15-year-old Chinoso Onuke is at home recovering with what police describe as life-altering injuries after a terrifying attack.
The whole thing happened so fast you would think it's a dream.
It happened here at the Neeland High School in Brandon on June 10th. Onuke, a grade 10 student at the school, says he was walking down the hallway during lunch when he saw someone.
I see a guy by there who's walking down the hallway in a black witch doctor mask, like I think a black bucket hat or something like that, and black trench coat. I look at him and I'm like, yo, this is kind of weird. This is Halloween or something.
He says he made a joke and then turned to walk away, but something made him turn around.
So I look back and he's pulling out a sword. Like, if you looked at it, it was like this. It was big.
And that is when the brutal attack began.
Before I can even think, he lunges at me, like, gets the first one in my abdomen or my leg. I don't know which one.
Onuke says he fell to the ground as the attacker continued slashing and stabbing his leg, shoulder, and chest.
It was all action, zero thought.
He says he managed to grab the blade, slicing 7 of his fingers in the process.
He tries to pull it, I don't let go, then I push it away, and I just book it to the office.
Brandon police say another student called the school's resource officer, and within minutes, police arrived at the school finding a 16-year-old student with a sword. Police say he was tasered and arrested and is now facing charges including attempted murder.
So let's talk about the demographics of Brandon, Manitoba. Population is just over 51,000, and guess how many of the black community is there? A whopping 5.4%. So needless to say, there aren't a lot of black people there. However, his parents are prominent members of the Igbo community, so there is a Nigerian community there. This junior anti-black racist that attacked this young man with the sword is actually indigenous. I immediately went to, he's got to be one of the folks. What's surprising to me, though, is that it's an indigenous person, only because the indigenous are, if not at the top in some instances, they're second when it comes to anti-racism that goes on in Canada. This particular person who attacked Chinoso with the sword had an issue with immigrants. So it was definitely a hate crime. It was racially motivated. It was unprovoked. And this ended in this young boy being rushed to the hospital, 10 hours of emergency surgery. And as you can see in the video, he's pretty badly injured. And as you can hear, this 16-year-old has been charged and all of that other stuff. My concern is only for our black students. We are not safe in these schools. We require our own major institutions for our students. All over this country, in almost every school board, there's a black student that can tell you that they are suffering with anti-black racism. They are not safe. So we need to do something to ensure that our students are safe. Now, not all of us have the luxury of being home and homeschooling our children because, let's face it, the cost of living in Canada is astronomical. It's second to impossible to be able to stay home unless you're a millionaire or a 2-income household that's over 6 figures. That's literally the only way. And even with that, it's still a struggle. So homeschooling is not necessarily an option. What we need to do is really work on making sure our students are safe. And we need to really work on making sure that these school boards are held accountable. Because from what I understand, this young person there's been some history of anti-black racism going on. So the schools and the school boards need to do more to protect our black students. They're not doing enough. There's far too many reports like this going on in the schools. It has to stop. And I'm blaming it on the government because they're not doing enough. And I blame it on the school boards because when these things happen, they don't do enough. Oftentimes it's ignored, and that is a fact. There are several black students that have gone on record privately to say that when they report it, it's not taken seriously. And oftentimes it's coming from the top, it's coming from teachers, it's coming from faculty members. So when you hear it from a teacher, when you have a teacher writing the N-word on a board and you have a bunch of junior racists laughing, how is a black person feeling safe in the school? When you have black students that are afraid to speak up because they're afraid it'll either be worse for them or it'll affect their grades at the hands of their teachers, how are they going to speak up? How does it fix the problem when you have people in those positions that are also racist? This is why I say we need our own institutions. But that 16-year-old will get charged, maybe go to juvenile, be out in no time flat. What was really done here? Did we get the racism out of him? Absolutely not. And we as black people need to be, very, very mindful about where we choose to live. I know oftentimes we want to say, why should we leave? We were there first, or we were there before these people came, or we're not going to be run out. But at the same time, when something like this happens, we might want to consider going where it's a more diverse, part of Canada. They do exist, Toronto for one. So we have to think about all of those things, and I'm very grateful that this young man wasn't unalived at this attack, but it's super disheartening for me as an African and also growing up in the school system in the racist province of Quebec and going through a lot of anti-black racism. It's triggering for me. It's upsetting. It is frustrating, to see that this continues and doesn't stop. We definitely have to hold the school boards and the government accountable. This is why we also need an anti-black hate law in this country, which we are laboring to do. But let me know what you think about this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this